Dead meme.
Hey guys, you're back with Dead Meme. I'm going to cover how to solve simple ship issues, particularly with the starter ships. We're going to look at the build menu, basically what all the functions do. I'm going to break it down really simple because it's not as intuitive. We're going to take a few ships off the workshop. We're going to look at some problems they have, and I'm going to show you some potential fixes. First, I'm going to explain briefly where you can get these ships, how I got them from the workshop. So in the Avorion community, there's a workshop tab. There's a whole bunch of breakdowns for searching. Like you can throw in starter ship or just starter, and you can search by relevance as well. Ship, and you can slowly break it down until eventually you find what you're looking for based on material, whether you're going to use it for military or civilian work. But I've got a video that shows this a little bit more in depth. I'll link that in there if you want to take a look at it. But what we're going to look at is this ship. This is a starter ship that I used a few times. It's not too bad. It has its issues, and we're not making fun of the creator or whatnot. I'm just saying that there's some tweaks you can do to improve its performance as you get some more resources and whatnot. So probably the first thing you should do right off the bat when you build one of these ships out of the workshop, you may want to take a look at its cargo bay if it has one. Cargo bays that aren't one continuous block, like this is a good one, but in reality starter ships and cargo bays, it's not super useful. I don't think it's something that you should be searching for in your first starter ship. But the other large one is the integrity field generator. And if we just middle mouse on that, this is the area in which the field generator is going to protect the ship from taking damage, like from permanent damage. If you're blasted by pirates, parts will fly off unless this block is in there to prevent it. So as you can see, it's huge. These things take up a fair bit of energy. I don't think you need to make one that big. So this is just something to keep in mind when you're devising your own ships, that anything that you build outside of this cube will be susceptible to being blown off the ship. You're going to see it a lot when you fight the pirates. As well, I've given each ship a bare minimum number of subsystems, something that you might find in the beginning of the game with some early game turrets, so that we can do a general test to see how effective the ship's going to be, right? So how much energy do we use while we're boosting? So the energy usage on this ship is actually okay, and its drift isn't terrible. In order to solve drift, we need an inertia dampener, and they have one. These are very expensive for power. I do not recommend going too big on these, and they can only be made out of iron. So if you make this too large, you're going to need to add more generator blocks. Their titanium generator is relatively large. Titanium is the first metal that you can make a generator from. You'll be unable to build a ship that is not using solar panels before this time. I don't recommend that. We'll do a quick jump to another system just to get an idea of whether or not you're going to have an enormous headache just jumping once, because that is another issue with power. You'll jump once, you're pretty much out of power, and then you got to wait forever to jump again, or there's pirates. So if you do run into power issues, one tip, so you can hit I, go to the power settings. If you turn off flight assist, it's a great deal of power that's freed up for you. And other than that, the ship's not too bad. It has an integrity field generator the entire way through the ship. It has a cargo bay, which I don't think you really need. We push I, we can turn the flight assist back on because you'll drift without it. It's not too hard to control. The only complaint I have with this vessel is the amount of crew quarters that is available. So of course, you can always just add more crew quarters. Relatively easy. I'll just shrink it down a little. Maybe not. It's a little bit ugly, but you know, you can tinker with it. You can always do, like, you can always swap the cargo bay. There you go. And now it doesn't look hideous. But now we're going to move on to the next ship. So this is another ship that's labeled as starter. It wasn't too terrible. I did use it for a little bit. There was one critical modification I needed to make, and I'm going to take a look at that with you now. So on this ship, I did like it when I used it. There was one issue that I found out when I was fighting some pirates one time. The integrity field generator does not cover the majority of the ship. So, like, any damage that's taken to these little parts that aren't within this field can be blown off, and you'll have to either pay to repair them outside of combat, of course, or make your way to a repair dock, which might be difficult when large portions of your ship are blown off. But I'm going to make the adjustment. I'm going to show you how I was able to correct the problem. Alright, so to get this integrity field generator, we're going to open up all the blocks. Make sure that none of this is active, or it's going to make your building a little bit funky. Well, we can cover that if it becomes relevant, but I don't believe it will. And by using the WASD, you can change the size of this integrity field generator. And now the vast majority of the ship is protected. So one other issue it had was I have the flight assist turned off. It's not a critical system. You can survive without it. With one integrity field generator and just those handful of guns, this ship is losing power. So we're going to go to generator. And we'll just create a little generator. There. So keep in mind when you build a new ship, you think the design coming out of the workshop is going to be perfect. It probably won't be. You'll need to have a little bit of extra currency and materials left over. The drift on this one isn't too bad. It does come with a cargo bay, so I do recommend maybe swapping it out for something else, because in reality, this amount of cargo space you might be able to do some cargo missions with, but it depends on what style of play you're looking for. Another ship labeled starter, 3 slots, which is relatively common for most ships with this label. I did really like this ship as well, but of course we're going to put it through the scrutiny. So integrity field generator is pretty much the first thing you should always look at. The majority of the ship is covered, but as you can see, that little nose cone, if I don't move these turrets back a little bit, they could be blasted off in a battle with pirates. The back end of the ship has minimal protection as well. You could throw a small field generator back here to sort this out. This ship's got no cargo bay. Its generators are okay. What was it? The inertial dampeners. So their inertial dampeners are a huge energy sink. This ship is relatively heavy compared to its stopping power. So I'll just kind of show you. It's got a lot of drift to it. It's not terrible, but you know, if you are not a great pilot, you may want to consider adding more inertia dampeners. The only real issue that this ship has is those inertia dampeners, so we should move these turrets to a location that is protected, because in reality, who really cares if the nose of the ship gets blown off? It's a small amount. There we go. And now it's good to go. This is my go-to at the moment. If I'm starting a new game, this ship is very effective. I feel the modifications you need to do to it are pretty minimal. I'll leave a link to it in the description so that you guys can take a look at it if you're starting a new game at least. Okay, so as you've progressed through the game, you're going to gain access to a lot more resources, of course. Eventually, you'll unlock some building knowledge. You'll be able to build a bigger vessel like this one. This one I would consider maybe like a frigate or maybe a really, really small destroyer. And it's only a titanium and iron build, but it has something special in it. But we'll get to that momentarily. The first thing we want to look at, of course, is the integrity field generator. The vast majority of the ship is covered except for like a little bit of the nose. So any turrets, you want to line this hole with them, it's going to be safe. It has a torpedo base and torpedo storage. So these I feel are kind of optional. Torpedoes are great in the very beginning of the game because not as many ships could shoot them down. Later on, it feels like everyone and their mother's got more than enough point defense to deal with your nonsense. But there's a special block in here called framework. Once you get neonite, which is this green mineral, I believe that's the consensus on how everyone wants to call it. So as you can see in the titanium section, there's nothing about shields, but when we move down to neonite, shield blocks are available. And we can open up the framework through the view menu, and we can see the various frameworks. So this is added as kind of like an option to customize. Many workshop builds contain some sort of framework in which you can add to you can add to the ship that's been designed and customize it to your needs. So we're just going to middle mouse click. I'm going to hold down left alt and left click. And now this ship has shields, and I've eaten up that bit of framework. And you can like replace this with cargo, power, whatever your needs happen to be. And as you can see now, I've got shields that are charging. This ship's major issues are pretty small. Like many ships in the early game, it's got a fair bit of drift to it. And it does hammer through power pretty quick. So I do recommend either additional generators. So I'll show you that. Titanium generator. All blocks. Framework. And its energy recharge significantly improved. Doing a little back spin and just kind of swinging your backhand out, that'll help you deal with the drift of the early game vessels. But hopefully that's helpful. Simple ways to customize these ships, especially the starter ones, because materials aren't readily available to you. I'm just going to quickly recap, of course. In the build menu, in a shipyard sector, push B. Use this view section here to look at all of the various components. Like directional thrusters allow you to turn a little bit better. Crew quarters is required for your crew to sleep in or to not have a revolt. Your gyro array helps the ship bank. And of course there's torpedo storage. There's very, very many things. So later on, as you understand more and more, it'll be easier to customize your ship. But for the most part, look out for this framework. This is a very, very powerful tool. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Talk to you again.